You're listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network show on the Vets on Media Network.
I looked out this morning and the sun was gone. Turned on some music to start my day. Lost myself a song. I closed my eyes and I slipped away.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Brian Hazelgren here again with you. One more show with my co-host and partner, Shane Chance. We are live in studio today in beautiful, sunny Mesa, Arizona. We are grateful that you've tuned in today. You are listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network, and we have some really cool things to discuss today. It's actually a follow-on from last week's show, or the previous show, and how we put together some ideas and some concepts for business plan development. But this one, we're going to start looking more closely at what the next step would be, and that would be to raise capital. But before we get into the rest of the show and all the good things we're going to be doing today, Shane, it's awesome to have you here in studio. It's great to be on air again, so glad you're here.
Thanks, Brian. It's nice to be here, and it's much easier to have this conversation when I am. That way, when I make random statements, people can have a better idea of what the studio audience is doing.
That's exactly right. Well, it's good to have you here in studio and not being on the road.
Yes.
So
much nicer to be sat squarely down. Thanks.
Well, you know, as always, ladies and gentlemen, we always give a big shout out to our military personnel, our current active duty military personnel that are serving our country and keeping us safe and keeping our land free. And we also give a big shout out to our veterans who have served so bravely and courageously, and the sacrifices that they and their families have made in behalf of all of us so we can remain as a free nation. Also want to give a super big shout out as well to all the entrepreneurs really around the world that keep creating jobs and create new innovative products and services and actually solve some of the market challenges that are out there. So thank you to entrepreneurs, veterans, and active duty military personnel. We really appreciate all the things that you do. Shane, last week the last show, we talked about the reason why we need a business plan. We talked a little bit about the business plan blueprint, why that becomes so important to follow a blueprint. You and I were talking a little bit more in depth about what the next steps would be. And last week we kind of teed up the idea of, well, maybe we should talk more about the what is perceived to be the next step that every entrepreneur wants to take, why they write a business plan. It's not the only reason why we write business plans, but that would be to raise capital. So as you and I were talking about that, we really felt strongly that we needed to maybe put it out into three different areas. Raising capital in today's market, why we need a business plan, and then some sources of capital.
Absolutely.
So those three areas should be something that we not only have a little bit of fun with today, we'll tell a few stories, success stories. We've got a few of our own that we can talk about.
Always a bonus.
Yeah, that's always helpful. To help, I'd like to also maybe even spend a few minutes later on in the show about two other ways of raising capital, and that would be a little bit from the work that and looking at grants for charities and how we go about doing that. And I was actually looking at sponsorships. So I know this is a little bit of a curveball, and I didn't tell you about this, but I was just thinking out there, you know, I probably ought to mention this a little bit.
It's okay. I've thrown a few curveballs.
Yeah, last show was a bit of a curveball. That was a good one, though. It kept us on our toes. But what do you think about that? I think we may want to cover something to help charities, too, because charities are always looking for the next wave of funding or other sources of funding and grants. I've got a little bit of history with that. You and I both have history with sponsorships. So maybe we ought to bring that up as well.
Oh, I definitely agree, especially because any company, any investor, anybody who's looking to either invest in your company, invest in your product, invest in you personally, as it goes, are all looking for cost marketing at some level. So if you have something that equates with cause marketing that you can use in your company, that's definitely going to be a plus. So I absolutely think that should be something we should cover.
All right, good.
Absolutely.
You hit that curveball right out of the park. Nicely done.
I read my lines.
Thank goodness for the script, right? What would we do without the script? Okay, so one of the areas that we want to focus on first is raising capital in today's market. This past week, I was looking at a few different stories and rounds of funding that was coming through for some companies that had started up in the high tech world, and they, of course, went the route of venture capital.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they went the route of venture capital is A, they could get a lot more funding up front. B, they had some VCs or venture capitalists that actually have a lot of expertise in raising capital for their startup company that could have been, in some cases 5 years ago, in other cases 15 years ago. But the type raising capital today is probably something that we, as small business owners, are always looking to do. There's never enough capital for us to run our businesses, it seems. There's always the next cool idea, the next innovation that we want to come up with. Some of these articles that I was reading this past week showed that the funding that was available for these particular high-tech companies was very easy to acquire. But I guess the question remains, if we're not in Silicon Valley and we don't have the latest technology or the latest app that's going to take the social media world into the next stratosphere, what if we're looking for capital where we're trying to expand our manufacturing line, or we're trying to open up a new product line within our company, or we're looking to open a retail spot? Where's that capital at? So those are some of the things we wanted to discuss today, but these articles focus really heavily on high-tech investing and medical investing. Now, we've got some partners that are in the medical side
We do.
for our foundation, and they have access to capital that sometimes other small businesses don't have access to. So what that leads us to is really what we talked about last show is how are you going to get the capital if you don't have the actual blueprint that you can hand to somebody?
Oh, and I thought you were talking about my statement.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't embarrass you.
I am actually going to bring that up again because I want people to think about this as we're doing it. And I'm as we're having this conversation, I think the reason that this hit home to me and why I brought it up at all is because I used to joke with people and I'd say, I am the dud who knows all this stuff.
There you go. Adam just fell on the floor again.
And why this is so critical, really, Brian, is because we have a tendency to overlook those people that are that are close to us because they may not have the money that we're looking for, and so we assume that because they don't have the money, they're not a good person to ask. But the reality is that if you were to take me for example, I don't have millions and tens of millions of dollars to loan somebody. But the cool thing is that I know people. Or I know people that do.
And who are also looking for deals.
Yes, because they have money that they want to invest in a worthwhile product, service, company, person, whatever, however that may look. So when I throw out that comment, every dud knows a stud, that means don't overlook those people that are closest to you, because there are very few degrees of separation between the people that you know and someone who has that funding that will work for you or for what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, even though the comment is funny and took us all by surprise last show, it still is relevant and it still does make sense, because we definitely do have a lot of contacts in the world. Some of the things that we've also discussed over some of our business practices was not just the people you know, but how you actually present your company to them.
Very important.
So as you present your company to them, last week we just briefly touched on why we need a business plan. I want to dive into that for just a minute. The article that I wrote several years ago about the 9 principles of a highly successful business plan. By the way, that's on the site, so if anybody wants to download it for free. But that article got posted on several different social media sites. It also got published in some magazines. But one of the areas that I focused on in principle number 2 was if you don't plan, you plan to fail. And the whole point of a business plan, I mean, it's like when you get in, you have this great idea of going on a trip. And usually you figure out, okay, I got to have some kind of a map, because I don't know which highways or freeways I need to take. If you're driving, let's say we're driving on this particular trip. And let's say this trip's going to be a week long and you're going to be making multiple stops. Whenever you have that type of a plan put in place, A, what time we're leaving, B, when are we going to get there, but C, what points are we going to hit along the way? We plan that out. We spend a lot of time planning out our vacations, our trips we're going to take, because we want to make that time the most important time. Our time's valuable.
Right.
How do we make our trip the most effective that we possibly can? And when it really comes down to the places you want to go visit and the things you want to enjoy on your trip, that's important. Vacation time's important. Let's make no bones about that. I'm all for vacations, but why do we as business owners fail to spend as much time planning our own business or our own next launch of a new product, for example, than we do on a vacation time? What's the big difference? Because the same is going to be true for our business as it would for a vacation. We need to have a plan. We need to commit to that plan to writing. We need to write it down. We all need to agree to it. And then we also need to really have a better appreciation and a better understanding of that business or that trip that we're going on, because we get a little excited about maybe the points we're going to be stopping at. And really, it's our way to go and get our own little slice of the pie of the American dream. But we have to do that if we're being introduced to somebody, if we're introducing our company or our product line to someone else. The best foot forward is going to be a plan. It's not going to be just us. It's not going to be a fancy business card. It's going to be the actual document that we commit to writing. We commit our plans to writing. So what do you think about those?
No, I agree.
points?
We have I think obviously the slight difference that we're going to have here is that, it's a little bit easier, I think, to plan a vacation because we're in control of those details. One of the things that when we reach out to others in order to support what we're trying to do, we're having to count on and rely on being able to convince that person that this trip is worth the ride and worth the money that's going to be invested. One of the things that, another quote of mine, the devil's in the details. And when it comes to a business plan, the awesome thing about the business plan that you put out there and that everybody could, like you said, put together in a day for the most part, allows us to create more solidly in our mind what those details are, so that when it comes time to do that presentation to someone that we want to invest in what we're doing and want them to get excited about what it is that we're trying to roll out, that's where we can put all of those details in. And it's like when you do go on a vacation, it's a great parallel. Yeah, it's a great analogy. It's a great parallel because we should be as excited about our business as we are about going on a vacation, and put as much thought and effort into that. The cool thing is like you said, if we stop, what are we going to do when we stop? Where are we going to go? What are we going to see? Who do we want to have participate with us? That's the cool thing about a business. A lot of times you get to pick who it is that you get to do those businesses with, and who you get to invest in that. So it's a great comparison, because we have the opportunity now to create a business plan / trip that we want to go on and be able to present that to someone else, get them as excited about it as we are.
Yeah, that's one of the areas that's really important for us as we put our best foot forward and we're explaining to people why we're so passionate about our business or our particular product line that we're launching, whatever that may be. Last week, I had a really cool meeting with some some people that want to work with our foundation, Go Vets Foundation, where we assist veterans in finding jobs and get better health care, and also work with them to start their own business. But, and by the way, for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, it's that organization right there, okay? Just a little bit of plug for the organizations, Go Vets Foundation, okay? Thanks for zooming in on that. Anyway, the reason why I got excited about this meeting last week is because this particular company wants to introduce some very good products that are really doing some amazing things for helping reduce inflammation. They've got some compounding pharmaceutical products that are just unbelievable, where you can stop taking addictive drugs and get on the creams and other meds that they have that are truly astounding. We'll be talking about those products in some of the other shows. And then one of the other products was doing some particular work and services with doctors around the country and doing some blood panel work. But aside from all that, I got pretty excited about the whole concept. So I took Friday night and a lot of Saturday to start pounding out what those numbers would actually look like. Because at first, when I heard the numbers, I was thinking, that's not going to work, because those numbers are not believable. And it wasn't until I actually reduced it or committed it to writing, I started to see how this would unfold, how it will not only get some amazing products out into the market, but it will raise a lot of funds for the foundation as they partner with us. And the numbers were starting to jump off the page. But it came down to two things. One, I had the passion to go do that. I shared those numbers with you. You started looking at the numbers and you started thinking, well, okay, are these believable? And
are these even realistic?
And when we ratcheted it back even further, we said, well, look, here's what the industry standard says. Here's what they're charging for these services. Here's what doctors are doing. And we went way below those numbers that was even reported out in the industry, and still came up with a 5-year plan that, as we looked at it, said, okay, maybe this could work, and it will raise a lot of money and awareness for the foundation at the same time. But then it came down to the second part, which was we actually did some research, and we found 6 other companies that are doing these types of services. And to hear that they, in one particular example, they were, their number was 8 million products that they were putting out into the market, or 8 million. Their number was 8 million, not revenue, just the number of products that they were putting. And we were only talking 22,000, and we thought those numbers were way too high. So if one organization who's been around for 12 years, 8 million, and we're saying 22,000, then it started to become back to that point of reducing it to writing, committing it to a plan, and actually looking at it. That's where my excitement came from.
Right. And you made it, because you had the information to back it up, which is what was critical. It made the numbers, even though they were what they were, and they were still hard to believe after ratcheting it back, it made it more believable. It made it go, okay, this does make sense, because not only is it out there and we're seeing the results, but even if we were to take and reduce that and work with it on a smaller scale, which is often what happens when we're an entrepreneur and we're just starting out, just getting going, some of those numbers are not only unbelievable to someone who may be loaning capital to you and to your business, but they are also unbelievable to you yourself, going, man, those are huge. Is that even possible? Can I even wrap my mind around getting something like that? So the cool thing about what you did and being able to work with and present these numbers to the people that we were talking with was awesome, because you were able to do it in such a way that you were able to present evidence of what is already working and already functioning, scaling it back to something that could make more sense in comparison, but still know that potential was out there to reach those numbers.
When we called our new partners about this, and I shared the numbers with them on the weekend. Yesterday we had a meeting with them, and they looked at the numbers, and they were both grinning ear to ear. And the biggest reason was they'd already done that work in their own mind. They'd already pulled out the calculator. They didn't have these elaborate spreadsheets in front of them like we had developed, but what it did do is it brought back home into their minds that it's believable, and it's something that's
and doable
and very doable.
and doable.
So that was kind of fun to see their excitement after they looked through the numbers. But I guess the point here that we're trying to make is that as we're raising capital in today's market, we got to put our best foot forward. We have to reduce our plan down to writing, commit it to writing, have a business plan that's presentable and that's a good, solid business plan. And by the way, we have templates for you on the website as well. The verbiage side, the written part plus a template for developing your financial forecasts. And then I think what we'll do now is as we go into a break here, why don't we start thinking about not just why we need the business plan, but maybe some of those questions we're going to need to answer for the investors. And we won't go over all 15 because there's 15 of those, but we'll just focus on a couple. And then I'd also like to start focusing on the sources of capital that are available to small business owners and breaking those down in the next segment and why that becomes so important. So as we come back, folks, we'll talk about a few questions you're going to have to answer with your investors and inside of your business plan, plus sources of capital you can take your plan to. For now, I'm Brian Hazelgren. I'm here with Shane Chance, and you are listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network show.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in your life. I'm no different. Hey, everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strongly about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Veterans served us, now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsofnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help.
You're listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network show on the Vets On Media Network.
Well, welcome back, folks. I'm Brian Hazelgren along with Shane Chance here in studio. Ready for another segment of the show. We've been talking about raising capital today, talking about writing business plans, having a good plan written down and putting your best foot forward. Now I want to kind of move into some of the ideas that really resonate with entrepreneurs, because at some point you're going to have to pitch this idea to somebody and help them get their excitement on board and wrap their minds around your particular idea or your company that you're starting. But I think about not only the many business plans I've written in my lifetime, but even and then looking into the investments that have been done into other companies. last show, we talked just briefly, we kind of ended it with what's the best thing that we need to be aware of as we answer the question for the investor, and that is
What is the
ROI.
ROI? Mhm.
What is that return on my money and when? Well, guess what? That's about question number 15 out of 15. So you got to answer the first 14 before you get to that one. And what I've learned over the years is that there's a lot of things that we can talk about inside the business plan. We can talk about it also in the presentation that we're showing them. But there's a few certain questions, and I want to make sure that everybody realizes that that last one is probably the most important one. When is my return on investment going to happen if I'm your investor, and what does that look like? So we have to answer that question, but I think what we also have to do is go back to some of the original questions, like if you think about some of the top 4 things they want to know about. Number 1, what's your management team look like? What experience do they have? Number 2, what is your marketing strategy? And oh, by the way, does that strategy line up with your market analysis? If you've analyzed the competition, do your strategies vary from, or are they exactly the same as what's the competition that's out there? And then how do those areas of marketing strategy and market analysis then roll into the financial projections? Let me just throw something out here, folks, as one thing you've got to remember when you're crafting your business plan and you're trying to raise capital. If you have the coolest financial projections ever, even those cool projections we did over the weekend that kind of blew everybody away, if you have the best marketing strategy that you've ever come up with and how you're going to sell your products, market and sell your products, and if you can show that the market is already crushing it out there and there's plenty of room for your company to start, all those things don't matter if you don't have the right team driving it. So then the management team becomes really important.
That's true. And, one of these times we probably ought to have one of our shows on marketing. But the interesting thing about marketing is investors really want something new. They want to know, what is the new thing that you're going to do? What is going to make yours stand out? What is going to make it different? But by the same token, they're really drawn to the tried and true because they want to make sure that you're going to do something that works.
Right.
So it's an interesting dichotomy when you're trying to deal with, marketing. And that's a big part of trying to convince someone who is going to loan you money towards your business. They want to see the new, but they want to feel the benefits of the tried and true.
I think one area too this is a question I always love to ask other entrepreneurs and ask our own team. Why does the market need this product?
Exactly. Or why would it want it?
Yeah. Well, why would someone pull out their credit card or write you a check or give you money in exchange for whatever product or service that you have? What's so unique and different about your product or service? And why does the market why do you think the market needs this right now? Why do they need your company? Why do they need your product? I mean, that's a question that we've got to have that nailed down before we walk into a meeting. That's one of those critical questions.
Yeah, well, it's the critical question throughout the entire business plan. You have to know not only what your why is, but the why of the marketplace and the why of the investor. You have to know all of the answers to all of those why questions as you go through your business plan and as you need to answer those questions that will come from someone who is either going to purchase your product or service or who is going to invest in it.
So if you're sitting there, let me back up to even another question that I've always liked to ask is, how much capital do you need? I remember sitting in an investment. Well, we were looking at doing an investment into a particular company, and I asked that question. I said, "So I don't see in your executive summary how much capital you're asking for." And I said, "So how much capital do you need?" And the answer was, "Well, we need somewhere between 50,000 and 500,000."
Ooh.
And I said, "Oh, okay. Do you have a particular number?" And they said, "No, it's somewhere in that range." So if you're an investor hearing that, do you get a particular warm, fuzzy feeling that they've worked this through their mind and worked it out enough to where they know what they're doing?
Not at all. That's very unclear. It's very vague. And unfortunately, when it comes to investing in a company, they're going to need specifics.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want specifics.
Okay, well, let's break that one down even further. Here's another critical question, folks, that you're going to need to or you will need to answer, and that is, what are you going to do with the proceeds? How do you use the funds as they come in? How do you have that broken down? So also, again, one of our templates is a use of proceeds table. It gives you all the different areas that you'll need to show where the money is going to, that it's not just going into your bank account and you're going on some cool trip and you're going to buy a new boat and a new truck to pull it.
It's not?
I know that's a little over
Dang
the
it.
edge, but you'd be surprised. I mean, we all have to remember the dot bomb era.
Yes.
and how important that was, because there's so many companies that took tens of millions of dollars, and in 6 months they were out of money.
Yep.
Well, but you look in the parking lot and there's some really nice cars out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like there was a few boats and trucks out there too. Well, okay, and we've all gotten past that, but the whole point is, when you show a use of proceeds, you've got to break down if you need $10,000 for legal expenses, for example. How much is your rent going to cost you for the next year, so that we know that you're covered for your rent? How much do you need in marketing? And then break the marketing down into even further segments of what type of marketing? Is marketing going to trade shows? Is it putting together brochures? Is it your website? Is it print ads that you're buying? Is it social media ads? What does that look like? So you've got to break that down even further again, because any investment source, any source of capital, if they're giving you the money, they want to know how that's going to be used.
Well, we're back to the devil's in the details. And each aspect of that business blueprint has detail specifics that you need to be able to answer and provide for anyone who's going to be taking a look at that.
Okay, so now let's look a few years down the road. If I'm an investor and I want to be involved in your company and I want a piece of that company, I want a stake in that, because that's why I'm giving you the money. Otherwise, you can go get the money from the bank. They won't give that to you in most cases. But anyway, we want to start thinking about what that exit strategy may even look like down the road for the investor. Or for that particular, let's not even say it's an investor. Let's just say it's a financial source that you're using for capital. And we're going to discuss those different sources in just a moment, by the way. But the real crux of it here comes down to how do you use that capital, and what is the actual exit strategy? In other words, when are they going to be out of the deal with their return on investment back? Typically, you'd want to see something in 2 to 3 years. Obviously, it depends on the structure of the company, what the future looks like. We saw an app that was launched just within the last 2 weeks that they're claiming is going to be the next latest and greatest app on the planet. I won't mention it now because they haven't paid any advertising dollars yet.
But we should call them.
But we probably should call them, because they just got a bunch of money.
They did.
And for good reason, because they have a pretty cool app that's supposed to be taking the social media world by storm.
Yes.
But it all came back to, I saw an article about this particular company that it all came back to two points that they wanted to make. One was they wrote a pretty good business plan, and they went to the right sources that were comfortable with that type of deal. In raising capital, if you've got an investment source, let's say you've got an entrepreneur who's an angel investor that wants to be a part of the deal, but they don't want to give you $2 million. Maybe they have $50,000 they could give you to help you get started. Or let's say it's $100,000. If they give you that type of capital, what do they get for it in return? How long can they stay in the deal? And what does that actually look like down the road? If that $100,000 they gave you, does that turn into more? Obviously, is the whole point of investing. But we've got to be able to show that in the details, and how we're not only utilizing the money, back to the use of proceeds, but how that funding ties into the devil of the details in the numbers that we're putting together, that is also backed up by our market analysis to show what the competition is currently doing.
Exactly. No, this is definitely, they definitely handled it really well. And one of the things that, we didn't even talk about this or go over this much, but certain investors are looking for specific kinds of details or specific kinds of businesses. So if you have somebody who's involved in a technology type of a deal, maybe that's not going to work as well with an investor who's in the health industry
Right.
and is looking to do that. So another thing that you're going to want to make sure is that when you are looking for and approaching specific investors or people who can provide capital for your company, make sure that the people that you are going to, it's like when you're writing a book and you're going to submit a book to a publisher, you don't want to submit a crime novel to someone who does, that writes a medical book. They're not going to understand, and they're not going to have any concept of what that is and what that looks like. So make sure that when you're approaching those people, you have enough information on the investors that you're looking to approach that you know that they are into the type of business, product, service, whatever that is being offered.
We have a really good friend who's a very astute investor, has been for a couple of decades. He's put together some amazing funds, actually very large funds, but they don't deviate from that fund. It's all about real estate. They don't invest in anything else.
Yep.
And if we were to approach them on some other deal, it would not come in to them as a company that they would invest into. Maybe if they had a personal interest in whatever that particular company may be, that might be something that could excite them. But if we were to bring a deal to them, anything outside of real estate, they'd say, thanks, Brian and Shane, appreciate it. But that's not what we do. So back to the point then of making sure that you do a little bit of homework, folks, on who you're talking to. Make sure that you understand what their sweet spot is. What do they like to invest into? And in the next segment, we've got a little gift for everybody again, another thing that we're going to have on the website. And it's really a little kind of a booklet we put together of the top 20 angel investors that are here in the country and the deals that they're looking for. Those types of deals are really specific. In most cases, it's not more than 3 types of things that they're looking for. And in a lot of the cases, they're only looking for one thing, like our one good friend who has these huge real estate funds. He's not looking for anything outside of those real estate funds.
Well, this comes back to clarity. I mean, again, coming back to your business plan, knowing what it is that you want. When you're describing that to someone, say, I'm the dud that you're coming and describing that to. And you want to know what studs I really know. You're going to have to be able to explain that business plan to me and understand what it is that you want me to provide. Never a dull moment. Thanks, Adam. Made me feel better.
Yeah, I'm just looking away.
And I say that with love. So.
Thank you. Anyway, but the truth is, you have to know and you have to be able to explain that to somebody. We talk about a 30-second commercial. When you meet somebody and you come across somebody and they're in a situation where they want to know what it is that your business is, so that when they go to talk to somebody, you're going to have to be able to explain that with enough excitement and enough detail that when they're going to talk to the people that they know, they can actually say, you know what, I do know somebody that's in that industry and that would be interested in doing that, or you know what, I don't, but let me talk to the people that I know and see if they know somebody. And again, that's where that degrees of separation comes in. It's very short. And when you hit a certain level, those people that are investors know other investors, even if it's not within the same industry that they would invest in, like you said.
Well, I think what we'll do here, that these 15 questions, we haven't gone through all of them, but they're really important. And there's an entire workshop that I filmed last year that is actually on, the link is off of my personal site, but let's put it on the radio show site so that people can go link to that. It's called the 15 Critical Questions You Must Answer. And those questions are based off of a lot of years of investing and actually having to pitch to different investors. So that's a pretty cool little workshop. We'll also put a code together that any of our listeners can get to get a huge discount off of that. So anyway, we'll provide that link for everyone.
Well, I think this comes back, Brian, to the analogy that you made about going on a trip. When you go on a trip, you want to know that information. If you're going to go visit somewhere, if you're going to go and talk with somebody, let's say you're going to go to a place that you've never been when you're going on
Right.
this vacation. What are the information you're going to want to know personally when you go to these different locations as a part of this road trip that you're going on?
Right.
Those are details you want to know. Think about it in the same concept. Don't, rather than, I think we get excited about going on a trip, so we're able to take and put together a trip quite quickly. Take and invest that same excitement in your business and be able to express that same excitement when you're talking to somebody, but know that those are the same kind of details they're going to want to have too.
Very good point. Love it. And by the way, folks, these links that we're talking about, where you can download templates, you can download other things that'll be helpful for your business, that'll be on the vetsonmedia.com site. And when you go to the shows tab, you'll see our show listed there, Entrepreneurs Radio Network Show. And once you click on that, there will be areas in there that you can download some of these pretty cool little things that we put together over the years that we'd love to just share with our audience, and make sure that you have those available to you. When we come back, we do want to get into the different types of capital, sources of capital, and discuss how some of these sources look at particular deals like we've already been mentioning. We'll kind of carry that on. But we also want to maybe even highlight some of those deals that they're currently looking for. So in case some of our listeners have a project that they're thinking about or they're trying to get funding for, they may want to be able to download this later on, because this will be a little booklet that you can download of sources of capital. For now, I'm Brian Hazelgren. I'm here with Shane Chance. You are listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network Show. We'll be right back.
Veterans served us. Now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsofnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help. Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552. Or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network Show on the Vets On Media Network.
Welcome back, everyone. Again, this is Brian Hazelgren along with Shane Chance, and you are listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network Show. We're talking about raising capital in a crazy business climate of today. We're talking about, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Shane needs to get her composure. Okay.
I'm going to blame this one on Adam.
Okay, see, here's what we'll do. I'll just separate it, and then she can't look at it. Okay, this
There's
is
a
all on
camera
Brian
over to
now.
Brian.
You're out of camera. See ya. All right. You good now?
I'm good.
You gotta love the breaks. the fun that we have during the breaks.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so
Moving on.
sources of capital. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, if I can hang on to my pen here, about the sources of capital that we're all aware of, but let's just go down them real quick. First of all, we have ourselves. We have our own savings accounts. We have our 401k even.
Yeah.
We even have personal credit cards, which we don't condone, but it is available.
It is available.
And it is capital that you can use to help with your business. I've launched several companies with using credit cards and had to go back and pay them off, of course, but at the end of the day, it is a source of capital for you. Mom and dad is another source of capital. Of course, dad seems to always be the ATM for the teenagers anyway, so I don't know why this would be any different, even when they're grown and ready to start their own company. A wealthy Uncle Tom, or other areas, other family members that may be. We've talked briefly about angel investors. And by the way, just so that everybody's on the same page with us, if we're talking angel investors, we're looking at successful entrepreneurs who still have that bug and they want to be involved in other companies and they have capital available. They're looking for deals. They won't treat it as the same as a venture capital firm where they're going to require 80% of ownership for several $1 million, even large amounts of money. They may look at doing investments. We're going to talk about some of these here. They may do investments as low as $1,000. Where there was one that has a range here of $1,000 up to $1 million or up to $5 million.
I have a quick question.
Fire away.
Angel donor. What's your definition of an angel donor?
Well, an angel investor is a successful entrepreneur who has capital available, wants to be involved in multiple deals, may not look to put tens of millions of dollars into the deal, but would want to be on your board, would want to be maybe even an active participant in helping you. And you would want them helping you because they've already been successful and that's where they're getting their capital from, versus a venture capital firm who will usually take at a minimum 50%, 51% ownership of your company, insert someone on your board, making sure that you're doing what they dictate to you. Not that venture capital is bad. So we're involved with venture capitalists, but they require a lot of equity, and venture capitalists will at least look to 10 times their investment. An angel investor is not going to be that aggressive. So if a VC firm puts in $10 million, guess what? They want $100 million back, and they want to have an exit strategy that you stick to. That exit strategy is usually an IPO. Not all the time, but it's an initial public offering where stock is offered and they can get that 10-to-1 ratio based on their investment. So I always love working with angel investors because they want to help you. They're entrepreneurs and they want to be involved in your deal to help you not only find success, they've got the bug. They're entrepreneurs. They want to be involved in multiple areas. We also want to talk a little bit, or just a few others. We can talk about, obviously, there's your bank. There's SBA guaranteed loans through your bank that you can get. There is even receivable financing, call that factoring. We launched a manufacturing company using that very type of funding that was available. We had to pay 4% for the money. That was short term, and basically what we did is we turned over our invoices to the factoring company, and then they collected the money and they took a fee of 4%, and sometimes it can go up to 13%, depending on lots of different variables, but it would usually be based on the other company who's paying the receivable, their credit rating, and how long they have the receivable out there for. And there's a lot of several different criteria. But that is one thing that you want to look in as a small business owner, if there's receivable financing or factoring that could be available and made to your company. One other thing that we also did is we actually had some of our original customers on this manufacturing deal place orders for big discounts. So we gave them discounts. We used their capital to help literally fund the initial part of our inventory.
Great way to go.
That was always fun. There's also the IPO, the initial public offering, and there's also sponsorships and grant funds that are available, grants that are available, even for charitable causes. So now let's go back over some of these different types of investors.
You know, Brian, really quick, just to throw in there, there is actually specialized funding for specific groups. So ethnic groups, or
Right.
if you're female, or, some of these things. So when you're looking at some of this, take into consideration some of the other options that might be out there too, a specialized form of funding based on goals that may come into play according to background or, like I said, gender, and things like that too. So keep those
I
in.
think one thing that's probably needs to be pointed out also with the angel investor community, last year there was over $120 billion that was invested into small businesses, and those were usually based off of even micro loans, something very small, and not tens of millions of dollars at a time. It was family, it was friends, it was even successful angel investors who were looking for the right deal. But over $120 billion was infused into small business last year.
Well, unless
That's a pretty cool number.
Yeah, unless you're playing in the big leagues with certain things, I think more often than not, especially for a young startup entrepreneur, the funding that you're going to be looking for is not these big numbers that we become very afraid of, like when we're thinking about going to college to become a doctor.
Right. A little
They
bit
are
different.
They're smaller numbers, and like you said, we've got angel investors in there that will loan as little as $1,000, and people go, well, gosh, what can I get started for $1,000? But there are a lot of things out there that you don't need a lot, or maybe you have some that you can bring to the table, and they have some that they can bring to the table. So it's a mutual win-win, and you just don't need as much. But I think it's important to keep in mind, sometimes when we're thinking about starting up a company and we're thinking about getting money for that, that's why the numbers are such an important part of the game, is because you may find out that you don't need as much as you thought or were afraid you might need. By the same token, if you don't do the numbers, you may not, and you don't do them correctly, you may find out you need a whole lot more than you thought you needed. But you had an interesting story about that once. You were talking to me about that, where someone had put in their numbers that they only needed $50,000, and they were not being able to get that funding anywhere. Well, when they came to you and talked to you, they actually needed, what was it, like 200,000?
Yeah, well, the story's correct. The numbers are a little different. They came to us, they had a business plan for 500,000.
Okay.
And the industry that they were going into was really revolutionary in the fact that it was solar energy. And everybody knew as they were looking at the plan that there's no way you can get into solar energy with $500,000. That's like throwing money out into the wind on a really windy day, and you're never going to get that money back. But it was more of the sense as we revamped everything for him and helped him understand what his true potential really is, that the investors are looking at like, you're going to fail. So we raised it up to $2 million that he needed to just launch. That was phase one. There were 3 different phases. In phase one, he needed $2 million to get going. And we helped him get the funding. And he got it a whole lot faster than what he was trying to do.
So again, the numbers become very important, but it works on both sides of the table. And I guess I better really be paying closer attention when I'm going to be repeating your stories.
All right. At least you teed it up there. Hey, just tee it up there and I'll smack it down the fairway. How's that?
Excellent. I can do that. But like I said, the point I was trying to make is back to that business plan and the numbers and all this. It's really important that we understand both sides of how that looks and how that works. Adam, did you have a comment?
No,
You're just raising your
I was
hand for
raising
fun?
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I apologize.
No problem.
Well, actually, on some of these investors that you're going to see, I mean, we've all heard of Jeff Bezos. We know who he is. He's the founder and CEO of Amazon. He last year, as a personal investor, as it shows in our little study here, he did 11 investments, and they all started at 1.5 million. So anything under $1.5 million, he's not interested. Okay, so that's one thing you have to be aware of.
There you go.
We looked at several others in here. Benjamin Ling, he's one of the investors of a venture capital firm, and they look at early stage investments. But when you look at what he's done 81 investments last year. He did 81 investments, ranging from $50,000 to looks like $250,000. So he's doing small deals. Then you look at Dave McClure, who's also another angel investor. Last year, he put his money into 61 different deals. And they started at $500,000, and he looks like he goes to 1.5 million. So he's got a range of $50,000 to 1.5 million. There's others here that are really fascinating to look at. This particular investor, Dave Morin, 67 investments last year. His range is 25,000 to 50,000.
See, it just goes to show it's
So
a
they're
numbers
all-
game.
you gotta
You have to know your investors.
Yeah, you got to match up your deal, your product, your company with the right type of investor. Chris Dixon, he did 25 investments last year. He's looking for, and there's no specification, but $50,000 is the minimum, and up is what it says in this little report here. So we'll have that available for everybody. You can download that on the vetsonmedia.com site. When you go to the shows tab, you look at our show, Entrepreneurs Radio Network. That particular little, it's not really a booklet, but this, what do we call this? This little manual of information. Anyway, that'll be available to everybody. I also want to point out one other thing that we did back when we started, I didn't start this charity, but some good friends of mine started a charitable cause back in 1983, having a very difficult time raising money. Couldn't find it. They found literally a sponsor that was willing to write a check for $150,000. $150,000 is a lot of money now. It was a whole lot more back then in 1983. Their particular sponsor wrote them a check. They gave them all kinds of accolades on TV and on radio. It was really almost an advertising fee if you looked at it, but they used it for the investment capital to get them started. This particular children's charity today has now raised, after 32 years, has raised over $4 billion. Okay. My development team and I was blessed with a really good development team. We actually raised a little over $1 billion of that $4 billion. But it all started out with $150,000 sponsorship for a charitable cause. They used it the right way. Joe Lake and Mick Shannon did a wonderful job in getting that launched, and they've created an entity that is pretty special. So accolades to them. Just again, that all started from a simple business plan. They got the $150,000. They actually got a sponsor out of the deal. That sponsor is still with them today after all these years. So we've covered a lot of things today. We've covered areas that are kind of important for a small business, and that is raising capital. One of the areas that we didn't really cover today in depth and in detail, mostly because it would take an entire show, and that is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a way for you to, if you are to do three things in crowdfunding, where you put together an intriguing story, you go out to your existing network of social media contacts, and you have some pretty cool perks available. There's many companies launching through crowdfunding. So we haven't really gone in depth and detail on that. We will be covering that in a future show. So just stay tuned on the crowdfunding issue. For now, really, as we wrap up today, we as business owners want to raise capital. I hope that we've shared a few little tidbits of information that will help. I know we've covered a lot of ground here in a short period of time. But I think it always comes back to those principles that we started off with earlier. Raising capital in today's market is certainly available. There's capital available. We've got to have a business plan. We've got to answer the right questions.
Yep, the money's there if you've got the right answers and the right plan.
What do you think about the idea of maybe actually wrapping up too with the type of business plan that you write? I mean, we've seen business plans that are 200 pages that don't work. We've seen business plans that are 50 pages, whereas maybe even if you think that through a little bit better, just create a simple executive summary in the beginning, send that off to someone, have some believable numbers. We need to continue doing that.
You know, honestly, what really is going to come through is your passion. You and I have both been in meetings where we've shared different aspects of what we do. And I've had people look at me when you've been talking, and you've had people look at you when I've been talking, and it's like, you know what their passion is, don't you?
Yep. Right.
And it does. It shows. It comes out. And that's what you really want people to see, because they need to know that you believe in you so that they can believe in you too.
Very good point. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe in you. All the entrepreneurs out there, we're here to help. We want to help you as best we can. Hopefully we've given you some good information today. I'm Brian Hazelgren along with Shane Chance. We're grateful that you've tuned in once again to the Entrepreneurs Radio Network show. We'll look forward to the next show and make it a great day today. We'll talk to you soon.